Before we envelope to our skeleton, it's a good habit to just go in, double check our control rig, make sure everything's good to go, and then we can move on to that last task. So at this point, you want to do things like move your controls around, make sure that everything's functioning right. Make sure that as you choose transform to 0, you maintain that skin pose. You also want to check things like your naming and make sure that it's clear. For example, our IK control for the left side. Maybe we can add IK after ARM, being that we're working with an IKFK rig. We can check the right side and do the same thing. Okay, this definitely needs to be renamed. It's going to be R ARM IK 01. So once we do things like that, we can check our layers. We can make sure things like our control objects are all stored. We can hide the layer. Looks like there's a few more things we can add. Our arm twist controls on the left side, I'll go ahead and add that. So you get the idea here. Now what we'd also want to do is maybe consider taking the facial controls and adding them to their own layer so we can clean this area up a little bit more. Once the animator is ready to animate the face, they can bring that layer back. So I'll select each of these controls. And with them all selected again, we'll create a new layer and simply call this facial controls. Alright, let's bring our attention to the global control. Notice we can rotate it just fine. We can move it around fine, no problem. But the problem is going to occur when we go ahead and actually scale this. And focus on the arms as we do that. Notice how the arms are not scaling right because they're not tied into the global control. Now when we set this up, we want to be very careful. We don't want to just take our roots for each arm chain and link that to the global control. If we do that, we're going to run into some distortion issues as we move our arm around. Some really nasty twisting. So to avoid that, what we could actually do is use helpers. We can align the helpers to our arm bones. Go ahead and link the arm bones to the helpers and then link the helpers back to the global control. So we want to kind of do that in that order so this will work. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go to the create panel, and again we're working with helpers. You can have it set to box, and say a size of 7 would be fine. So we'll go ahead and create 6 helpers, again for each chain. I'm going to go ahead and select the helpers on the left side and quickly recolor them. And then we can rename them. Alright, so this first one here we can call PT SCL for scale underscore L underscore arm ENV 01 for envelope. Go ahead and rename the next one, and this will be for our FK chain. The last will be for the IK. Alright, now that that's done, we can go ahead and take care of the right side. Okay, this will be for the IK, and this one will be for the envelope chain. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and open and back up the layer manager, and we'll create a layer. And what we're going to go ahead and do here is store all of the objects. Once we're finished with them, we're going to go ahead and store them in layer 1 and hide that. Now I have created the layer with this object selected, so right now I'm just going to go ahead and add that to objects to hide. So that way layer 1 is empty. Now go ahead and turn off the visibility. So starting with the left side, we'll go ahead and select the first helper there. Okay, going to the envelope arm. And again, the process is we first want to align this to the arm bone in orientation and position. From there, we can freeze its transformations. Now, can take the arm bone and link that directly to the helper. Then the last step here is to take the helper and link that to the global control. Once that's done, going back to the layer manager, can go ahead and add that helper to layer 1. So that's one down. The next one will be for the FK chain. So go ahead and unhide that. I'll just move this over to the side. Again, we first align to the bone, freeze transformations, and now we're ready to link the bone to the helper. After that, we link the helper to the global control. Okay, once that's done, you can go ahead and add that to layer 1. Alright, so we have one more for the left side, then we could go ahead and take care of the right. So here what I'm actually going to do is hide the FK chain, bring back the IK, align this helper to the IK chain, go ahead and freeze it, go ahead and link the root to the helper, and the helper right to the global control. Alright, so from here, we can go ahead and test this out, select our arm, move that up, everything's moving fine. Of course, what we'll also want to do is head over to the modify panel and start to twist our elbow and make sure that there's going to be no shifting. Okay, great. So we want to keep that order, again, to make sure that we don't run into any twisting issues. So from here, going back to the layer manager, we can now take these envelopes, or excuse me, these helpers, and go ahead and add them to objects to hide. So I'll actually turn off the visibility of that, turn on the visibility of layer 1, select the other helpers. Oh, don't want to move them. And with those selected, we'll go ahead and store them under objects to hide. Alright, so now go ahead and swap the visibility here and we can work on the right side. So the first one here, or right at the back, this is for the envelope arm. So I'll hide the IK chain. Again, align to the bone. Freeze transformations. Go ahead and link the bone. And then link that right back to the global control. Alright, once that's done, we can store that in layer 1. Work on the IK chain next. Alright, we can freeze this after it's been aligned. Work on linking. There we go. And then link back to the global control. Okay, so that finishes the IK helper. I'll actually add that to layer 1. And we can finish up with the FK. And then we'll just have one more task to do to finish. Okay, freeze transformations. Go ahead and link that FK bone. And then link its helper to the global control. Okay, let's test this out. All we need to do is move our IK arm, start to rotate or twist Make sure that there's going to be no shifting at all. Alright, it's just fine, so I'll go ahead and zero out the twist and set that back to 0. And now we can bring back our layer manager. Go ahead and add these helpers to objects to hide. Once that's done, we can go ahead and take layer 1 and delete it. Alright, so again, we learned how to basically make sure that the arms will scale with our global control. So no matter what size the character's in, or no matter how the character's been resized, I should say, again, everything's going to work just fine. And we want to make sure that we do this process in that order. If it's not, of course, we'll run into that distortion. Okay, the last task is going to be to take all of our controls and make sure we can create a quick select set to basically set keys on all of our animation controls at once. So as the animator poses the character, they can quickly set keys on all controls. So what we'll want to do here is go to the layer manager and make sure that just our control objects are selectable. So I'll actually hide the FK bones and hide the envelope objects, and that should leave us with all of our control objects in the scene. So it's just a matter of marquee selecting everything, including the sliders, and creating a selection set. And we could just call this all controls. So if we were to expand this, here we have it. If you ever want to remove anything, let's say you accidentally added something, you could always go to that object and remove with the X. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and select the head control and bring that right back. See here, select the set and choose add. Okay, so again, we have cleaned up our rig, we've established a selection set, and we also have now made sure that everything is going to move fine with the global control. Another thing you want to check is make sure that everything will go back to transform to 0, or as you apply transform to 0, you'll go back to your skin pose. Alright, so from here, just going to go ahead and show the envelope objects. We can hide our FK controls, since we're in IK mode right now. And if you wanted to, let's say we also turn off X-ray on the character. Alright, so now that all of these things have been done, that finishes this lesson, and we're now ready to get right into enveloping, and that'll start in the next.